The correct approach to solving problems. Good day to all of you. Let's be honest for a second. If there were no problems in this world, we wouldn't need self-help books, we wouldn't need problem-solving frameworks, and frankly, we wouldn't even need religions. But we live in the practical world. However, problems are everywhere. Therefore, before you spend energy trying to solve a problem, you need to know if it actually requires your intervention. There are 3 specific scenarios where problem-solving methods are completely unnecessary. When it's unavoidable, like the reality of death. When it disappears due to external reasons. For instance, if you are worried a tree is going to fall on your house, but a sudden cyclone blows it over to the other side, the threat simply vanishes. When it's solved by someone else, like a false accusation against you being completely cleared because the actual culprit confessed. Now, almost all religions that seek divine intervention seem to adopt a principle similar to that last category, praying for the problem to be taken away. But the actual situation is somewhat different. Let's remember that followers of these religions still have to adopt several specific steps to please their God. Therefore, the results still follow, according to the followers' own actions. According to our great teacher, the truth is simple. We ourselves have to solve our problems. We must be confident in our capability to achieve this task. If we apply the required effort and keep our commitment throughout, we can do it. Now, will it happen overnight? Not necessarily. The time required to solve a problem differs from person to person, depending heavily on your initial conditions and your environment. Although the ancient technique described by the teacher was originally meant to solve the ultimate problem of rebirth and its associated suffering, it is incredibly effective for addressing the broad spectrum of daily problems we face today, provided they meet the criteria we just talked about. There are 4 basic steps involved in this ancient technique. Let's break them down. 1. Study the problem in detail. Get the facts first. Analyze exactly what you are dealing with. Look at the situation from all angles without emotional bias. 2. Identify the sustaining factors. Focus on the present, not the past. Identify the factors that are sustaining the problem at the current moment. You don't need to obsess over the original cause that created the problem. You can't visit the past to correct it anyway. However, acquiring knowledge about the immediate past is helpful, as those factors are likely contributing to keeping the problem alive right now. 3. Visualize the post-solution state. Know what success actually looks like. Have a crystal clear idea of the entire situation after the problem is completely solved. Think about this. When leaders talk about signing a peace accord to end a conflict, most people can't even imagine the actual relationship that is going to exist between the 2 parties afterward. They just see a signed document. Don't fall into that trap. Know what the resolution looks like. 4. Find and execute the method. Build momentum, milepost by milepost. Determine the exact method to reach the solution. This path usually has several steps. Consolidate your position at each milepost, anchor yourself, and take a fresh attempt to move forward from there. At the beginning of each stage, it is incredibly important to search for a new target and identify it clearly and wisely. You need to constantly monitor the background context and detect probable threats. But don't just look at the negatives. Build up your courage by weighing your existing strengths, like your mental peace your dynamism, your knowledge, and your wisdom against those threats. Once you achieve a new status, stabilize it, consolidate it well before you attempt to reach the next level of progress. And look, let's be real, even under a well-planned approach, regression happens. You might take a step backward, but proper procedures minimize how often that happens. Do not be discouraged by unexpected events. Make a fresh attempt and keep moving. This correct path of problem solving can be applied to both ends of an internal conflict, the success of your expectations and the failure of your expectations. Let's use an example. Imagine a child who has a simple expectation to study without disturbances, but detects a conflict because of the probable actions of a school bully. The procedure to address the unfulfilled expectation can be seen as a corrective process that must be adopted just before the internal conflict actually happens. The child needs to take the necessary step before the bully even starts the harassment. Of course, to do this, the required knowledge and skills must already be developed. You have to be able to promptly recall the proper procedure at the exact right time. If the child is equipped with a martial art and adopts a powerful self-defense technique, the bully is unlikely to start harassing them in the first place. Therefore, a successful attempt is always associated with a period of preparation. Sometimes, wrong facts or using incorrect algorithms lead us to wrong conclusions, like thinking our expectations will never be satisfied. Revisiting the data and using the correct algorithms can completely reverse the situation. How do we learn these social skills? Usually through advice and imitation. Parents, siblings, teachers, elders, spiritual leaders, and friends play a massive role here. That is why developing proper social interfaces with them is so vital in our way of life. And what about technology? Technical tools are useful, but they do not eliminate human error. Think of an automatic pathfinder, what we commonly call a TomTom or GPS. It's quite useful, but it becomes completely helpless in certain situations if the human element fails. Now let's look at the problem from the other end, modifying our expectations entirely. This is a much more complex and difficult task. Adopting this procedure requires a deep knowledge of your inner mental layers rather than just external behavior patterns. Let's go back to our example of the child facing the bully. The child could actually decide to hand over his lunch or pocket money to the bully. But imagine they do this not out of fear, but out of pure compassion, willingly starving just to maintain their own inner mental peace and happiness. That is a profound shift in the inner mental layer. Because minds are complex, providing advice alone is rarely sufficient to change someone's expectations. Take the well-known ancient stories from the old traditions. Kisa Gotami. She was desperately seeking medicine to treat her dead child. Visualizing or just telling her the truth wasn't enough. She had to be guided through a practical realization of mortality. Monk Nanda. He only agreed to continue the relevant spiritual practices, initially because he was promised beautiful women. These stories confirm that we must adopt suitable techniques, customized entirely to the background of that specific person. To wrap it all up, we need to understand the difference between normal intelligence and emotional intelligence. Listening and comprehension are characteristics of normal intelligence. They are useful when you are building emotional intelligence. but because emotional intelligence is a completely different factor. The techniques we use for normal logic won't always work here. Before you apply any problem-solving technique, evaluate it against the emotional background of the person involved. Invest in your preparation. Analyze the present factors. Know your end goal and adapt to the inner layers of the mind. Thanks for watching. If you are satisfied with the knowledge gained, hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment with your thoughts below, and I'll see you in the next video.